Having a perfect credit score means that you could get the lowest interest rates anytime you want to leverage your money in real estate business or in life. It's how you'll be able to get such low interest rates that effectively it's like they're giving us free money. Not to mention, I'm so confident with what I have to say in this video that I guarantee this information could be worth easily a few $1,000s at minimum if you just follow along. Welcome to the Financial Flow. Please like and subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay up on our latest videos. The first, in order to understand how to get a perfect credit score, you have to understand how the credit scoring system works in the first place. Like I said, just like you've got a class that grades you differently on attendance, homework, and test scores, credit scores grades you on several different factors as well, and if you want to get a perfect score, you have to do well on all of them. The first and largest factors based on your time payment history, and that makes up 35% of your score. This means that you always pay your bills off on time, as agreed, without ever being late or missing a payment, because if you do that, that stays on your report for 7 years and it has a pretty devastating impact. The good news is that when it comes to paying off your credit cards, you only have to make the minimum payment in order to stay current. And most of the time, that's only between $25 and $50. So even in the worst case scenario, if you're not able to pay off the full balance, at least make the minimum payment, so that way your account stays in good standing. Second largest impact is what's called the amounts owed, and that makes up 30% of your score. This is also what's known as the utilization rate, which calculates how much credit you have available to you versus how much of it you actually use. Now, if you're somebody who maxes out your credit cards, or you use almost all of the credit that's available to you, your score is going to go down because you're seen as a riskier borrower. When it comes to this, it's really important to clarify that it's not the dollar amount that the credit algorithms care about, but instead the percentage of the credit that you use. As an example, if you have a $1,000 credit line and you spend all $1,000, that counts as utilization rate of 100%. And that's very bad. However, if you spend that very same $1,000 with a $10,000 credit line, and that's only a 10% utilization rate, which is good. One of the techniques that I use to help with this is to simply have a lot of available credit with really high limits. That way, even if I spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a renovation, it's still only a small percentage of the overall credit that I have available. The third, we have the average age of your credit history. In fact, it makes up 15% of your overall score. Lenders like to see that the longer you've had your accounts open for and in good standing, the more likely you are to be a good borrower. Of course, you should have noticed that I said this is based on your average account history and not your total history, because this makes a huge difference. For example, if you've only ever opened one credit card 4 years ago, then your average credit history is going to be 4 years. But if you've opened that same account 4 years ago, but then you've got a brand new credit card today, your average account age would drop to 2 years, which then would impact your score. So my recommendation is to start building your credit as soon as possible, but also keeping those accounts open for as long as possible. This is going to help you build up a solid fortress of credit foundation history, so that when you open up a new credit line, it's not going to have as big of an impact. Then fourth, we have the types of credit that you have available. That makes up another 10% of your score. This means that lenders want you to have the experience of handling multiple types of loans, from several credit card auto loans, mortgage, and anything else that will add on to your credit report. I know this all sounds like kind of a backward thinking, but it does go along the mindset of we're only going to lend money to people who don't need it, because they're going to be the people that are most likely going to pay us back, and that is very true. And finally, we have the remaining 10% of your score, which is calculated by the number of hard inquiries you have in your report. See, anytime you go and apply for a new line of credits, that's marked down in your report. Now, generally, the more marks like this that you have in your reports, the lower your score is going to be, because lenders see you out there actively trying to get as much credit as possible, and you're seen as a higher risk. Personally, I wouldn't worry too much about this because it'll only impact your score temporarily, and it's pretty minor. So now that you know how some of this works, here's some strategies that you could use to instantaneously boost up your score to the legendary 800 mark, all of course for free. First, you need to go and view your credit score by signing up for free either Credit Karma or CreditSesame.com, which both give you all the details of your credit history along with your own credit scoring model. Or you could get your actual credit report for free once a year at annualcreditreport.com. And by the way, one small tip, but if any website ever asks you to pay to see your credit score, just click out of it because there's no sense paying for something it's already free. Anyway, now that you have your report, you could begin reviewing it to see which items can be improved, and usually it's going to be one of these first you don't have enough credit for. If you're relatively new to all of this and you barely had any time to open up a credit card and make on-time payments, then most likely your score is not high because you haven't had enough time to build up your credit history. If that's the case, I'll go over what you could do to fix this very shortly. The second, maybe you got a late payment for 2 or 3 or even more. Like I mentioned, this is something that will stay in your report for 7 years, and that's a lot of bad luck and credits for time, but thankfully, there are some solutions to this that I'll cover momentarily. The third, you should check to see if you have any accounts in collections in. If you see this, well, not gonna lie, it's pretty bad. For those not aware, this is what happens when you are so late on a payment by usually more than 180 days. So the lender just gives up on you and calls the whole thing a loss. Then they sell off the debt to a third-party collections agency who calls you up non-stop and trying to get you to fork over the money. Typically, collections under $100 did not show up on the latest FICO scoring method, but this is still something you're going to want to keep on top of, regardless of how much money it is. The fourth, you should check to see if you have any high balances or maxed out credit lines. This is what happens when you borrow or charge the maximum amount that you're allowed to. And when that happens, lenders see you as a bigger risk, because why else would you have to borrow so much money, and that in turn brings down your score. To be clear, they're not obligated to do this, but you know the saying, you could catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, and asking really nicely can sometimes go a long way. And 5, if all else fails, look for any inaccuracies in your report, and then you can dispute it. Now again, you should never lie here, but if you see anything out of place and they can't prove otherwise, they'll be forced to remove it from your reports, so sometimes it's worth trying. Doing all of this should absolutely make a huge difference in your credit score in a relatively short amount of time, so all of this could help you get to a perfect score. And 5th, the biggest mistake that I see all the time is that you should never close out your old accounts. The thing is, because your credit score is calculated by the average age your account history that often starts from the age of your very first account. But if you close that oldest account because you don't use it anymore, what you're really doing is erasing your oldest trade line. And when that happens, eventually the average age your account history is going to drop. The rule of thumb here is that if they had no annual fee, just charge an occasional $1 Amazon gift card, the card every 6 months or so, and then just keep it active for as long as possible. You know, if the card does have an annual fee, consider downgrading the card to a free option, so that way you keep your account history without having to pay for it. By doing this and making sure you keep your accounts open and in good standing for as long as possible, that will help you increase your score. The 6th. This one is probably the most important point to listen to. Do not pay for any credit repair services and ignore all the spam comments praising someone for increasing their credit score. Most of those are scams, and every single time I try to delete them, a million more pop up. All of this is something that you could do yourself for free and under an hour. And everything is extremely simple to learn. If you're able to utilize these 6 steps, a perfect credit score is absolutely achievable for totally free without paying any interest to credit card companies, just by paying off your bill in full with no annual fee credit cards. It's also worth mentioning that even though getting a perfect 800 credit score certainly comes with bragging rights from a lender's perspective, anything above a 760 will usually get you the best rate terms into the full red carpet service. So there's really not a lot of difference from a 782 and 800 from their perspective, but following this certainly opens up many new opportunities to save a lot more money that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Have a good one.